The way we scripted Core, it needed to have like this introductory scene where the mercenaries got there, kind of the exposition of the story. And the way we had structured the whole thing, it was really necessary that that was kind of like set on a spaceship away from the planet. It wasn't until like a few months before that we were actually filming and had gotten all the actors that we started to realize that this scene was both critical for the way we had structured the story, but also really challenging. We had never built an actual proper full set for a film before. The biggest problem with this set was finding a place to build it, because we wanted to be able to fit realistically, like, you know, at the time we had 5 mercenaries, you know, a big cockpit of the spaceship that could actually fit multiple people and have some walking around. And the Marcus and Colt fight scene was actually originally supposed to be in Grant's spaceship, but we realized we'd have to build 2 sets, and we were like, 1 set is hard enough. We're still like, we can't remove this set. It's like, you know, 4 weeks until filming. We need to find a place to build it. We could do it in our garage, but that's just, it's not comfortable. There's not enough roof clearance. We're like, you know, ideally we get like this indoors warehouse with like some good clearance. And Marvin's dad was able to get a contact with some people at his work.
1 week in between tenants, and they said, okay, you can have this when this company moves out and this other company moves in. You have 1 week. You can utilize this as much as you want during the week, but everything has to be out.
And man, it was so relieving that we knew we had a week for the warehouse, and it actually looked cool. And as we went into the warehouse, we saw all of these boxes and crates around the warehouse, and it's kind of like this labyrinth and cool maze, and we're like, oh man, it'd be so cool to have, like, you know, people busting in and shooting through, and this would be our interior for inside the Core facility, because that was another big challenge of finding the Core facility. Those were the 2 main areas, and we're like, this is like a 2-in-1 kind of deal.
I had a vision for something really elaborate. Of course, seeing television, you know, and sci-fi networks, you know, I wanted something on par with that. I decided to use 3D to kind of design the interior of the ship. Try to come up with a cool shape, but also think through what would be possible to build, which was quite difficult because I didn't really have a lot of experience in building. But we mocked up this kind of cool 3D thing and said, that's what let's go for that instead of just a cube room to have, you know, some windows, some angles.
We'd gotten these big rolls of paper, roll them out, protect the floor, and then also to mark up the ground, measure out what we were doing. We kind of looked at the 3D model plans we had printed out, some different angles of it. Well, how do we even begin this?
So we had to go get the supplies, bring them in, try to build it, go back to the store because we got the wrong supplies. We went back to Home Depot and Lowe's, I don't know, 5-6 times, keep, you know, returning, getting new things, returning, getting new things.
We were initially trying to do nails. We had gotten some screws and they weren't long enough. We're like, it's a 2x4 and we wanted to drill it all the way through like that. And we're like, there's no screws that long. And we're just like really confused. And we're like, well, there's nails long enough, we could do nails.
And then we asked my dad over because he's actually like good at carpentry and stuff. And so he's like, what are you doing with all this crap? Just get like a box of screws and call it good.
He taught us the amazing thing of drilling a kind of pilot hole. Drill in, you know, halfway through the wood with your drill. And then the screw goes in from there, so it's halfway into the wood, so it can be a shorter screw and still get all the way through. And we had no idea about that technique beforehand, so that was really useful.
Alright, so what's going on? We were just cutting a bunch of the table saw here. So what we did is we're basically assembling some 5-foot by 4-foot sort of wall panels.
So we kind of made these frames. We did a cross beam kind of support thing, so you have the main ridge out here and then a little support that helps hold the two together. So it's kind of 4 different screws that are holding it all together. And then once we got that kind of first ridge up, we put the walls on either side, and that helped hold that up, and then we started working on the other, like 4, I think, frames.
Once we have that sort of put together, we have the main frame of our ship. We can focus on the front cockpit area, and then once we have all the main builds complete, we're going to try stapling on the roofing felt we got for sort of the wall panels.
We were going to do plywood at one point, but we really couldn't bring a whole lot with us on any one trip. We didn't have like a good big trailer or any other substantial way of carrying a bunch of stuff. We decided to try, it was experimental, it was like roofing tar felt paper or whatever it's called. So it's this like black sticky kind of tarish thing. It smelled terrible. It was not great, but we figured it was cheap, and then it came in small rolls, so we could like, you know, rolls this big, and we could easily transport them. And then it was black, so we wouldn't have to do as much painting work. We basically took a staple gun, and we just stapled this onto our frame. It was really difficult to cut at these weird angles, especially on the front of the window. It was very difficult to work with. I think in the end easier than plywood would have been. Welcome to the set that we've built so far. This is the main structure, flooring, and walling of the set. Looking pretty good. We're about to paint it sometime. So as you can see, you have this beautiful control panel and windows. There's beautiful structure and kind of stuff like that. And here's what it looks like on the front. Not too glamorous, but it's not meant to be pretty from the outside. It's meant to be pretty from the inside, which is getting there. So we got this kind of matte dark gray and kind of just painted everything. It was starting to come together with the wood frames kind of hidden by the paint.
There were some scary moments in there and thinking, are we going to be able to accomplish this? Can we actually do this? Scary, like down to the wire. Like what, the week we were building it. Like, is this going to work? I don't know. We got to just try.
We had the dashboard, they had to cram all these old computers and stuff with little lights and dials and hook them all up to the side. Adding things, finding scrap pieces, that was all really cool.
Luckily, also my dad came in clutch there, and we just got so many like just old technology components from a electronics company that's next door. And so we were like spray painting computer motherboards, we were just jamming big boxes with lots of switches everywhere left and right, and it turned out looking pretty good, I think.
Alright, and now we have our giant pile of tech that we're gonna load into the spaceship after we paint it. Just like dunk, dunk, dunk. Here's our little joystick for flying the ship. I think that was probably one of the most fun days on building the set, was just randomly putting in those pieces, figuring out how they all go, how to paint them, what to do. On the dashboard, we never actually nailed any of those things down, so all of those things were like slipping around and sliding. As we had gotten the warehouse, it was actually pretty cool because we walked in and we had seen these kind of two, like, it looked like a van or like a bus or some kind of like, it was like these two chairs that were connected together. It would be really cool if we could put these chairs, into the spaceship set. So we asked the people that were, that owned the chairs in the warehouse, and they're like, yeah, sure. Unfortunately, there's like a bolt missing from the chairs, so you apply any pressure into the back seat of the chair and it goes like that and falls over. You can't lean back on those chairs or else it would have ripped right through and knocked over the whole set and ripped all the tar paper and everything. So we made sure everyone was being very careful with those, so that's why everyone's leaning forward in those first shots. Really, it wasn't until we started putting the tech into the thing that I couldn't see the potential. Once we had some lights and all that, it started to feel pretty good.
Lighting the set was an interesting challenge. It was a lot of fun. We had a couple of different light sources, had these long tube LED lights. They can change any color we want, and I thought having sort of sci-fi blue and orange feel looked the coolest. And we got a bunch of these little tiny LED lights and we just kind of put them all over the dashboard. We bought a cheap little siren light for when the ship crashes, and we had the crash spaceship where we had a big spotlight, mimicking sunlight coming in from the outside. So one of the tricks that we had when the crash scene was happening was we wanted this ship to look like it's coming through the atmosphere. So we had one of us hold the light on the light stand outside the front of the ship and literally just kind of like move it in front to make the light kind of sweep across and, to mimic that the ship is moving. We had a smoke machine. We had to be very careful with it because we had no way to turn off the smoke detectors in this building. So luckily it was a sealed little set, and I kind of like puffed a little bit of smoke and the light caught it just right, so I think it really made it feel broken. We just kind of took some pieces and moved them off and changed the lighting to this kind of flashing, looks like electronics, broken. And that way we had some variety. We also had a third scene where Jaden's character comes back into the ship to talk to Grant, and we changed it all red to kind of add to the mood. I think that kind of made a distinct 3 versions of the lighting of the spaceship. It was, again, very hacky, but a lot of fun, and I think in the end it looks pretty good.
On the day, right before filming, I had this cool idea to take, we have 2 iPads, really cool to have like a proper computer screen. We were also trying to figure out how to do the Grant's hologram, and I figured like, if we had a computer screen, it kind of comes up out of that, and it's kind of like a hologram. So the night before filming, I stayed up until about 2 in the morning, working on making that little HUD to put on the iPad, figuring out how to render it. It was actually quite a pain to get a looping video. And then we had cut out holes in that EVA foam on the dashboard, placed in the iPads. One unfortunate thing with the set is the warehouse that we were working in had this loud air conditioner vent that was going off, and we tried to turn it off on the breaker box, but there was another like office building attached to the warehouse, and then everyone the office building kind of ran over to us and was like, "Why is our AC off? We're burning up in here." And we realized that the breaker was for the entire building complex, not just that warehouse section of it. That first scene, unfortunately, has this kind of irremovable, really loud sound in the background. Figure it kind of somewhat sounds like a spaceship engine rumbling. I would have preferred to add in my own sound and make it a little more cool. It's not great. It was unideal, but you know what? We're gonna take the few losses we'll take. We'll try to get what we can. And then we grabbed our cameras. Like, I hope this works.
So much work put into, building and tearing it down. 1 week to do all of that was tremendous.
Every single day was spent like 12 hours a day working on building the set, and then we filmed for about 12 hours in the filming day, and then we spent like 14 hours disassembling the set and get everything out, and it was just probably the most stressful week of my entire life. So that's the story of how we got a spaceship set. It was a pretty crazy journey. I would say we had incredible luck with the set. Getting the warehouse, getting the tech, getting the chairs, getting Marvin's dad, just everything. Like, it just worked out well. I really feel like we could have been dealt a really unlucky hand and not been able to do it. In the end, I'm really glad with how it turned out.